Everybody's written down their description of what's happened? All right. So now we're going to do a continuous round table. And what you're going to do is you're going to pass your paper to the person to the right, and for 30 seconds, that person's going to write down their response to your description. And then 30 seconds, it goes on to the next person to the right. And so we're going to do that 4 times, and you should have your paper back in the last 30 seconds there. And then we'll have you'll read through what the other people have said. I'm going to finish my directions first. You're going to read through what the other people have written, and then at the table you're going to have 2 minutes for a table talk to discuss how this continuous round robin table structure is a powerful tool that can be used in your classroom. You're not talking about the comments that they've made, but the structure itself. Begin. Pass to the right. Pass to the right.
I don't know why that's, it's because the camera must be crooked now.
I was just going to break down for 2 minutes, just saying when they get their paper back, so they just need a quiet minute to kind of take a look at the
That's not,
comments.
right.
Is that okay?
Well, they have to because we didn't really want to do the continuous evaluating the strategy till after they sort of process.
This time when they should
Yes,
consider-
agreed. So we'll stop them.
Was there explanation?
They should have. You should have.
30 seconds is up. Please pass the paper to the right.
Wait like another 8 seconds after that because we sort of late on the first one, but that's okay because they don't need much time themselves. Okay, I would say no.
30 seconds is up. Pass to the right.
And now on this one, make sure they say now you should get your own paper back and the last.
Yeah, for time's sake, probably, well, I think we definitely can watch these. But like,
30 seconds is up. Now you should have your own paper back, and you should be reading through the comments that the other people have made.
just really kind of maybe give
We'll give you an extra few seconds.
out, the whole strength behind connecting the content to practice, and how did this particular exercise, maybe
All right, take an extra 30 seconds if you need it to read through the comments.
somehow question, just after going through this exercise, there's mathematical content embedded and the standards for mathematical practice, but somehow force them to talk about it somehow.
We can do that before we do the ad. You can sit on that one and I'd stay on that. You can have them immediately after. Because that's powerful.
Okay, so now if you could take 2 minutes to talk about the continuous round robin structure within your table groups.
this strategy, I think it's just important to reinforce that, strategy is time unfollowed. Things moving in a pattern, students are really has that warning signal. Like I always say that it's a warning signal. No, it's a warning.
Just every time I get off of it, I'm just like, yeah, you go squirrel.
Can you just kind of like that about what strategy or what are you going to against? So you can go back.
So if we could come back together. As mathematicians, we often want to jump in the task and immediately begin looking for the mathematics. The thing that really excites me about this transition in math learning and teaching is that there are so many different approaches that our students come to us with as they engage with mathematics. So this task wasn't necessarily about the content, but more about what was happening with those patterns and how we see those patterns grow. And everyone in here saw those patterns grow in a different way. But what we're going to do is consider the variety of different possibilities that people might see these patterns grow. And this definitely isn't an exhaustive list, so I might hit some strategies, or I might not hit some strategies that you owned yourself. But what we would like you to do is consider which, I'm going to share some different strategies or methods of how these patterns might be seen as growing. And if you related to that strategy, if that was maybe the first way that you saw it or the second way that you saw it, I'm going to ask you to stand up, wave your hand and say, "That's me." So just get you up out of your seat, get your blood moving a little bit, and take a look at who else around you saw that task moving the same way. And then think about what strategies you may not have thought of, okay? So the first common way, and Sue connected to this strategy she mentioned earlier, is the raindrop method. And in the raindrop method, people visualize...
Fellow raindrops. Where are they?
So people visualize the tiles coming down like rain. So if you relate to that strategy, stand right up and say, "That's me."
That was me.
Another common method for seeing the pattern grow is the bowling alley method. In this way of seeing it, the learner sees the rows coming up from the bottom like bowling pins. If you saw the patterns growing like the bowling pin method, stand up and say, "That's me." We're getting the hang of this.
Those bowlers.
Here's a throwback to 1992, the Wayne's World method. In this strategy, students see the stairs going up like the staircase to heaven, access denied. If you use the Wayne's World method, stand up and say, "That's me." Or if you just can connect with Wayne's World, awesome. Another way to see the pattern grow is the Red Sea method. In this method, the shape splits itself in half and fills in from the middle. If you use the Red Sea method, stand up and say, "That's me." Awesome.
Yeah, there you go.
Another common method is the square method, and in this method, the learner moves the tiles to create a square. If you saw the patterns growing like a square, stand up and say, "That's me." So as you can see, as learners, we all have different approaches that are all interconnected, and there are probably some strategies out there that I didn't just highlight. Using your strategies and your collective knowledge, we're going to push further into this task. We're going to ask you to work together, and you'll have about 10 minutes, to consider what the sixth case in this pattern will look like. How many total blocks would it have, and how do you know? Once you've figured that out, we're going to ask you to consider how many blocks would be in the nth case. And of course, you're going to have to justify your reasoning and explain how you know. So again, we'll have you work for about 10 minutes. Thank you.
Yeah, dump it right on top. Well, that ties in, I think, my slide is like how many elementary. So when I go, I'm going to go through all this. Others are, we can show this from high school teaching. And then I'm going to say, how many of you, because I know that there's science people.
So I'll let you do that.
So I'll let you close this part out. Game on. Are these yours?
No.
That's awesome. Those are Jody's.
Yeah. I was going to throw it at her, turn it into a
Do
paper
you want to put,
airplane.
I put that
It's
back.
okay. I'll give them a 5-minute warning.
continue for about 4 more minutes. We're going to come back together in 1 minute. To find a solution for the first part of this task. I am pulling up 2 volunteers from the audience to tell us their answer for the first part and how they got that answer. Tell us your name, where you're from, and what you got.
My name is Jamie Morency. I'm from Argyle Central School, and there are 49 squares in the 6th case. How do I know? Well, it's a quadratic sequence, and so there should be the number of cases plus 1 square gives you the number of squares in the diagram.
Thank you so much, which will lead into the next part of this task, which is how do we know, or how many blocks would be in the nth case?
Hi, I'm Albert Tackle. I'm a district instructional coach from the City School District in Mount Vernon. Just like you said before, since the first case has 4 blocks, which would be 2 squared, then it is an x plus 1. So therefore, the nth case would be n plus 1 to the second power, n plus 1.
Great work, everyone. Thank you.
So after completion of this task, let's reflect again on the cover page and the introduction as they build and speak to the content standards to build procedural and conceptual understanding. So this shapes task we engaged in is a low floor, high ceiling task, and they're intended to provide access to appropriate grade level tasks with entry points for students who are not on grade level. Well, the end goal of this task, and you can see it, is an Algebra 1 standard with sequencing. There are multiple ways and other standards that are embedded into this one. And those are just a sample of the few that go into this task. So what I want to do now, and I want to kind of pull the audience on this one, how many of you are high school educators or admins? Just a show of hands so I can see this. That's a lot. It's a little intimidating. I'm an elementary guy. How many elementary do we have here? Okay, great. Yeah, I like that one. And also, how many of you are just in here not associated with math, so I can just see a show of hands? You're just here, happy to be here. We're happy you're here. We really are. We are really happy you're here. So time will be provided in the afternoon segment to dig deeper into these grade level content standards. Now, the big piece that we have here is we have our standards for mathematical content. And oh, middle school. I apologize on that one. That's a big one. How many middle school people do we have here? Yeah, there we go. I'll give you a round of applause. I like that one too. So the standards for mathematical content. To get a true understanding of these standards for mathematical content, we really have to merge those standards for mathematical practice. So once they come together, now we do have, or we can get that true understanding. First thing we want to do is let's take some time to familiarize ourselves and review those standards for mathematical practice. And here they are, the 8 mathematical practices. These standards for mathematical practice were developed prior to the adoption of the Common Core Learning Standards. They were based upon the NCTM math strands. The standards of mathematical practice, as stated earlier, can be seen as habits of mind, or what we should see students doing as part of their natural routine inside the math classroom. So the standards for mathematical practice, they're outlined in more detail inside of the Next Generation Mathematics Learning Standards document on page 7 and 8. So that's where you can go to get some further information on it. Right now what we want to do, there is a handout on your tables, and it's the beautifully colorful one with the mathematical practices with 1 through 8 on there. There's some pictures, there's some colors with it. We only have a couple out there, so you're going to really have to share with this one. And what we're going to do is we're going to engage in a table talk. So at your tables, you should see a tent, a little folded piece of paper that has a number on it. If you don't have a number on it, we'll get you one, but I'm sure most people do. Those numbers correspond to one specific mathematical practice. That's the one that we want you to engage in your table talk around. So at your tables, we're going to give you 2 minutes or so to talk about this, and really what we want is we want you to fill in that sentence frame. Standard for mathematical practice, SMP. We gave you that one. That's the number. So you're already 1 done. The next thing, as you're talking, we want you to talk about what did that look like and what did that sound like as you engaged in this task. Just that specific mathematical practice. The squares upon squares. So what we want you to do with this is then write out your sentence frame. You can have 1 per table. So collectively, a summarization filling in this sentence frame. So we're going to put 2 minutes on, and we'll come back and check in. I'm going to keep this one on. Always forget middle school, and I was middle school. No, it's good to get hacked. That's what I like.
Well, I didn't know. It's all good.
Well, good. At least we got it on tape, and I can rewatch that one again. Watch myself get food.
No, you didn't.
So we have about 30 seconds left that we're allowing you to kind of write down to fill in your sentence frame. We'll have some people coming around, and we're going to try to have at least one person from each practice share out. So they're coming around with microphones, hoping to tap on you to share out.
Well, if somebody could share it. Okay. So I'm gonna tap one of you to share. Chatty Cathy. Chatty Cathy. As long as it just, I have a mic. I'm gonna have you just share your sentence. No, that's okay. Because we're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Well, I was going to do the timer so they hear it beep.
Oh, it's loud enough. Well, I would just say, is there a table one who would like to report out? It's okay, right, but I'm saying.
So I'm going to bring you back to the front in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And thank you for having those conversations and filling in your sentence frame. And what I'm going to do now is turn it over to our people out on the floor with the microphones, and we're going to pick one from each of those standards for mathematical practice. So we'll start over with mathematical practice 1.
So SMP number 1 looked like multiple approaches and attempts and sounded like collaboration during this activity.
SMP2 looked like a geometric growth pattern and sounded like a variety of paths to the same answer during the activity.
Mathematical practice 3 looked like the actual writing and descriptions of comments, and it sounded like our discussion of thinking during the activity.
Mathematical practice 4 looked like patterns and algebraic representation and sounded like brainstorming and discussion about how the patterns or cases change.
Can I get a volunteer, please? Thank you.
Okay.
SMP 5 looked like figures on paper and sounded like discussion during this activity.
Allison, I got it.
SMP 6.
SMP 6 looked like algebraic expressions on the paper and sounded like different levels of understanding vocabulary with algebra during this activity.
Anybody for 7? I don't have nobody will do 7. My 7. 7. Lucky 7.
They won't do it. Nobody for 7?
We
got it.
We got one. We got okay. Is anybody 7?
What did it look like?
Yes, we do have a 7.
SMP7 looked like patterns and sounded like productive noise during this activity.
Thank you.
No, we did 7.
8. For 8, we talked about the addition of the blocks and then using the addition of the block thinking to express an expression, to write an expression to describe it.
Okay, very good. Now, just a side note, when we talk about it, I just want to, brings me back to probably, let's see, 31 years minus whatever, so maybe 28 years ago. I was in an evaluation and I went to my post-conference, which most post-conferences were keep up the great work, right? That was my post-conference, you're done. But then one time, though, I do remember getting cited on my evaluation that said, students were talking, although they were talking about math. I'm like, isn't that what we want students to be doing in math class? But anyway, so I get those flashbacks every once in a while. You know how some things stand out to you? That's one that I will remember forever. Okay, so you do want, when I heard productive talk, that's really what you want happening in your classroom. So to tie that in, what we did was one of our team members, we were like help wanted, because the thing is, we don't want little calculators running around the world, do we? Okay? We would like people to have the ability to calculate, but the content isn't really the most important thing when we hire a prospective employee, right? In the business world or even in our own world. We want students, we want people to have the whole package. And so we put this up here if you just would like to read it. Can people read that, or is it too small? It's small. Okay, so this was an ad we pulled, which I thought was awesome. And it says, work as an impactful and motivated data scientist developing technical solutions to complex problems. Analyze data to identify trends and support the development of mission-related analyses using techniques such as econometrics, regression analysis, cluster analysis, help me out, Bayesian analysis, discriminant analysis, sentiment analysis, support vector machines, survival analysis, and the other modes of machine learning. Okay, contribute to the development of new concepts and experiments, translate those ideas into executable action plans, and communicate these plans to a diverse client base. Create mathematical models and programs used to test solutions to complex systems, work within cross-functional teams to engage the client, comprehend the client's problems, develop strategic analysis products, support requirements analysis, including process and systems analysis, support the development of business and system architecture, and define actionable system requirements. So when you read that, okay, that's pretty comprehensive, isn't it? So is the math important in this job? Yes. But are there other things that maybe are just as important as the math? Yes. So that's why I say a lot of times with our standards, you know, the content side is the what we teach, okay? And the standards for mathematical practices side is the how we teach. How do we deliver those? And you really need to have what? Both to make it a really strong mathematics program. So that's really what we were trying to get at here for this ad. So I just want to remind people, if you take away nothing else, we really want to have a classroom that is doing things that are relevant to students, that are going to mean something to them beyond their K-12 experience or P-12 experience. So that's the takeaway. Now, I'm not sure, we're out of time. Probably we're not going to have time to do our other. But
Yeah,
we did give you the link. If you have not ever gone to the teaching channel, I strongly suggest you do, because when you're looking for videos to share, either with your staff, with parents, with school board members, they have some great resources. We have this link here, so we would encourage you to go to this link. It really is an excellent video about not necessarily even the math, but the different ways to deliver the math. And last but not least, we would just like to thank John and Sue. Give them a round of applause for all the work they've done. Maybe after 2 years, they will get a full night's sleep, just thinking about that. And also, I really want to thank BOCES, because BOCES and the DSs support everything that we do through SCDN. So we just wanted to let you know that we are supporting our component districts, and we're here to help. So if you have any questions, We'd love to see you in the future at some of our other trainings. Thank you very much.